Welcome back to the channel, and today we're putting our neck on the line for one specific reason: self-entertainment. Before I break down this week's poker sessions, I'm going to start off by ranking my personal favorite and least favorite poker vloggers. Let's dive in. For this list, we're going to have 6 tiers ranking from F, which is going to be the worst of the worst, to our S tier, which is going to be our top dog. Just kind of think of it like school: F bad, A elite, and S super. Let's start with the F tier. This guy's my least favorite poker vlogger, and it's not even close. He mainly plays 1-3 and has been vlogging for almost a year now, and I would say his skills are definitely subpar. He's got the face and voice only a mother could love, and that vlogger is none other than NorCal Poker. Damn! But to be honest, I just didn't have the balls to publicly label someone an F other than myself, so I decided to just take the bullet. So now that we got that out of the way, I honestly don't have a problem throwing in a D tier. Not that I'm biased or anything, but I believe YouTube shorts are far inferior to long form content. So the D tier list is going to be my favorite short form poker vloggers. First up, we got Sethy Poker. The guy's hilarious and makes home game style videos that are super relatable and fun to watch. Then we got Branson Poker. He uses in-game footage and hilarious accents to produce some of the best shorts on the poker internet. And last on our D tier list is my favorite short form content creator, which is Greg Goes All In. The way he's able to implement different outfits, accents, and editing is second to none. So shout out to those 3 guys for keeping poker loose and entertaining just like it should be. For our C tier, I'm going to go with guys I haven't watched much of, but the stuff I've seen I really enjoyed. For this category, I'm going to start off with Valdez. He's pretty new on the scene, and he's got a great sense of humor and intensity while using different camera angles to get the full picture of a poker session. Then we got Bluffalo Sam. He's done some wild challenges, and I watched a few episodes of his bankroll challenge, which was well put together and fun to watch. And last on the C tier for me is Wolfgang Poker. I know he's huge on the scene now, but before he blew up, I'd occasionally tune into his vlogs where he'd travel across the country and film at all different spots, which I thought was pretty cool. For the B tier list, these are my go-to poker vlogs. I've been watching each of these guys' vlogs for a long time and just love the content they produce because it's consistent and they offer a ton of poker knowledge that could help improve your game. First up on the list is local legend Doug McCusker. He plays at Capital Casino and has been vlogging the 1-3 game there for years. He does a great job at explaining solid poker fundamentals in his videos and how to use that to your advantage. Next up in this category is Ben Deach. He plays the bigger game at Peppermill and is pretty similar to Doug because he's super disciplined and knows the players at his game well. I enjoy his humor, especially the mid-session updates. And last on the list for me is Mariano Poker. I think his vlog is pretty awesome because it shows his journey of being a 1-3 player all the way to playing in some of the biggest cash games in the country. The way he breaks down his thought process each hand is super insightful, and it offers a totally different perspective on how a very profitable poker player thinks. For the A tier list, I only came up with 2 names, and it's for good reason. These guys are a pillar to the poker community, and without them, I don't even know if poker vlogs would be a thing. So without further ado, for our A tier, we've got the vlogfather himself and Andrew Nemi and NorCal legend Brad Owen. The way they break down their poker journeys from mid-stake Vegas pros to now co-owning a card room has been super insightful and entertaining. Without watching their videos, I probably would have never started playing poker and damn sure wouldn't be creating a poker vlog. So I'm just super grateful for what they've offered to not just me, but the entire poker community. And last but not least, we have the S tier. This is my favorite, most entertaining poker vlogger to watch out of everyone. Some of you love him, some hate him, but we all watch him. And that is none other than The Rampage Poker. I don't know what it is about him, but his personality and playstyle is just super entertaining. He honestly seems like a likable guy that has everything and nothing figured out all at the same time. From barely winning at 1-3 to becoming a World Series of Poker bracelet winner and playing in the highest stakes around, the guy just knows how to produce elite content, which is why he's my favorite vlogger to watch. So that wraps up my poker vlogger tier list. If you guys have any other poker vloggers you watch and support, drop their names in the comments and give them a shout out. But before we get into this week's poker sessions, I just got to let you guys know that the Cheddar Club is now offering weekly $1,000 free rolls on the Club GG app with no risk to you. On top of that, I'll also be hosting my weekly Monday meetup game at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time and giving away $100 to the highest stack at the end of the night. So if you want a chance at all this free money, click the Club GG link in the description and make sure to sign up using my reference code. For this week, we're back at the most action-packed card room in Northern California, and that is none other than the Capital Casino. We buy in for our usual $500 starting stack, and action gets started right away when I look down at 5-4 spades and open up the action to $20. Both a small blind and straddle are put in the call, so with $60 in the pot, the flop comes out 7-5-3 with 2 hearts, giving us middle pair and a gut shot. Checks to me, and I think a bet is warranted, so I throw out $25 for a little value, and just the straddler puts in the call. Going heads up to a very interesting turn in the 4 of diamonds, giving us 2 pair, but giving any 6 a straight. He checks again, and now we have a decision. There's a ton of draws available, but the straddler seems like an aggressive player that could put me in a tough spot if I bet and get check raised. So I check it back, and the river comes out the 10 of diamonds. The backdoor flush comes in, but I'm not too worried about it, especially when the straddler checks for a 3rd time. There's not too much on this board that I beat, but since he checked 3 times, a value bet is definitely in order. I throw out a $40 bet to target a hand like 7-8, or maybe a hand like pocket 8s that didn't 3-bet pre-flop, and after a little thought, our opponent sticks in the chips. I turn over my hand, and he tosses his in the muck. After playing a few more orbits, we got moved to the main game, which is going on overnight, and stacks were huge. And I'm trying to push myself to play deeper, so I add on $500 and we're already into the game for $1,000 total. We missed a few bomb pot opportunities and try to bluff with ace-king, so our stack took a little hit and we're down about $35 before this next crazy hand. I throw on the $6 straddle and 2 people in the field put in the call. The cutoff now raises to $35 and the button calls. Folds to me in the straddle, and I look down at ace-king of clubs and it's time to raise it up. I put in $120 worth of chips, and the cutoff wastes no time before putting in the call. Button gets out of the way, so we're going heads up out of position to a jack 3-3 rainbow board with 1 club. There's $275 already in the middle, and I throw out a continuation bet of $80. This is the same sizing I would use with all my value hands, so I have to keep it consistent with all my bluffs as well. Our opponent puts in the call so we could eliminate all his misses like small suited connectors, so his range probably consists of pocket 2s through pocket queens, some jack X holdings like queen jack suited, and the occasional 3. So the pot has ballooned to $435 and we have yet to see a turn. The dealer puts out the 6 of clubs on the turn, which I was pretty happy with because it gives us the nut flush draw as well as 2 overcards. I keep the pressure going and throw out a big bet of $175. My goal with this bet is to obviously rep an overpair and get him to fold all his pairs lower than a jack, which still have me beat. But that's not what happens because our opponent snap calls. At this point, I think the worst hand he has is a jack, and he might even have an overpair. So unless we hit a club, king, or ace, I'm definitely giving up and waving the white flag. The pot is sitting at $785 and we have about a 3/4 pot bet left in our stack, which we're probably going to jam if a club comes out. But unfortunately, we get a total brick in the 4 spades. Given the range I put him on, if I go all in, I think he has to call with his ace jack hands and obviously pocket queens, so I think I'd be lighting money on fire. I give up and check, and our opponent throws out a bet of $420. I fold, and he's a close friend of the vlog, so I asked him what he had, and he later told me that he flopped the joint with pocket jacks. So super thankful a club, king, or ace didn't come out, or we probably would have gotten stacked. Gonna have to battle today, because after that hand, we're down over $400. If we're gonna play with the big boys, then it's time to put my money where my mouth is. It's been a minute since we've done this, but we add on another $500 to our stack, so we're into the game for $1,500 total. In this game, being down over $400 really isn't that much because the action is insane and you could easily lose 4 figures on a table like this. There's no straddle on for this hand and 2 people throwing the limp. I look down at ace-9 of clubs, and even though limping is pimping, allegedly, I gotta charge them, so I throw in a raise to $20. The big blind calls the $20 and so do the limpers, so with $80 in the pot, the flop comes out 10-8 deuce rainbow with one club, and now the hijack leads out for a super small bet of $20. A lot of low stakes players lead out with top pair to get a feel where they're at, so since we're over $1,000 effective and I'm the pre-flop aggressor, I think we have the perfect hand to start a bluff with. With one overcard and both backdoor straight and flush draws, I decide to raise the price of poker to $80. Folds back to the hijack and he puts in the call. I don't think he'd lead out with a set or draw for this small sizing, so I'm pretty much just putting him on the average top pair holding. The pot's sitting at $240 and the turn is an interesting one and the ace of spades giving us top pair. He checks, and since there's no flush draws on the board and now we have showdown value, I don't see a point in betting since he'd probably fold all his 10x holdings if we bet. So I check it back and the river is a blank and the 4 of diamonds. He checks to me again, and since I'm putting him on a weaker 10, I throw out a super small bet of $45, but he wastes no time before tossing his hand in the muck. For this next one, there's 2 limps to me and I look down at ace-5 of hearts and raise it up to $20. Only the action player in early position calls, so with $40 in the middle, the flop comes out 7-3 deuce with one heart, giving us a gut shot to the wheel and a backdoor flush draw. He checks, and I throw out another bet of $20 to which he calls. Pot's doubled to $80 now, and the turn comes out the king of diamonds. He checks again, and this is a perfect card to double barrel with since all the kings should be in my range and not his. So I throw out a $50 bluff, and he eventually says take it and tosses his hand in the muck. Just glad we're not gun shy and kept the aggression going after our disastrous bluff with ace king from earlier didn't work out. Even though it was a small pot, it feels good to get a bluff through for the confidence. We're only down about $250 on the day now, so we're creeping our way back towards the even mark. A new player just sat down at the table, and it's none other than one of our go-to vloggers in Doug McCusker. He opens the action to $15 and next act calls. Doug's a solid player, so I know he's not opening trash from under the gun, so when I look down at 9-8 of hearts, I don't see any merit in 3-betting against his under the gun opening range, so I just put in the call. The cutoff and big blind both call as well, so with $75 in the pot, the flop comes out 10-9-5 with 2 diamonds, and Doug starts off with a check now. Next act checks as well, so with only the cutoff left to act, I don't want to give our opponents a free turn card since we might have the best hand, so I throw out a bet of $35 and just the cutoff calls. He could have all the diamond draws and straight draws, which we're beating, but he could also have us in rough shape with the 10. So when the turn comes out the queen of hearts, I'm not loving it, so I start off with a check, and luckily he checks it back. River is the king of hearts, and this board got worse and worse for our holding, so I check again and snap fold when our opponent bets $45. He's a friend of the vlog and was nice enough to show Jack 10 of clubs for the camera, giving him the straight. We gave a little back after value owning ourselves, but we're never upset when that happens. $6 straddle is on for this hand, and I was messing with my phone so I didn't see under the gun one call to $6, so when I looked down at pocket kings, I would have made it 25 to 30, but instead I just made it 20. The button calls, Doug calls in the straddle, and now the limper, who I didn't even realize was in the hand, raises to $85, which is music to my ears. He has about $450 total in his stack, so I raise to $300, basically putting him to the test. Folds back to him and he goes all in. I obviously snap call and turn over my hand like I always do when I'm all in, and the flop comes out queen 8-4, turn 3 of clubs, and river 7 of diamonds, and our opponent stares at the board for a couple seconds, then tosses his hand in the muck. We finally scoop in a massive pot, and just like that, we're back at the even mark. While we were finishing stacking our chips, we lost a small 3-bet pot with ace queen versus Doug's ace 5 when he flopped middle pair and I gave up on the turn. So we're down about $130 now, but no worries because we pick up another premium. Cutoff opens to $20, big blind puts in the call, and I look down at pocket jacks. A raise is definitely in order, so I bump up the price of poker to $100, and the original raiser folds, but but surprisingly the big blind double flats and puts in the call. Double flats are usually pocket pairs or big suited aces and Broadway cards that want to see a flop. So we're going heads up to a flop with $220 already in the pot, and we get a pretty great board of 10-5 deuce rainbow giving us the overpair. He checks, and just like I did with my bluffs, I throw out a small c-bet of $80 to keep my range balanced. I was expecting him to call or fold, but instead he just rips it and goes all in for $413 more.
What? Bro.
Definitely wasn't expecting that, but I'm 100% convinced he wouldn't make this move with a set or two pair to risk losing me on such a dry board. So I pretty much snap call and turn over my hand like I always do when I'm all in, and my read was spot on because he didn't have a set or two pair. Instead, he turns over pocket queens.
Son of a bitch.
We're gonna need some help with just two outs, but unfortunately the turn and river are no help. Didn't really cross my mind that he could have had an overpair in this spot, and if I took my time, I might have saved a few $100. Let me know in the comments what you guys would have done in this spot. We went from being stuck over $400, then building our stack back up to the even mark, and now back to being stuck over $700 within an hour. This is a sick game we all signed up for, and there's nothing to do than just keep my head down and grind it out. Next hand up is none other than the famous Capital Casino $15 bomb pot. We're on the button and get dealt King 9 offsuit. 7 people join the party, so there's exactly $100 in the pot after the drop, and the flop comes out 9-4 deuce with 2 clubs, giving us top pair second best kicker. Middle position throws out a half pot bet of $50 and action gets folded to us. Since he could have any 2 cards, I think the only move is to just call and evaluate the turn. Everyone else gets out of the way, so we're going heads up with $200 in the middle to an ace of diamonds turn. He now slows down and checks, and my live thoughts were that the ace scared him and he either has a weaker 9 than me or a flush draw and not much else. So given that I'm ahead of most of those holdings, I throw out a value protection bet of $60 and he wastes no time putting in the call. There's $320 in this pot, and the river comes out the 8 of clubs, which is not a card I wanted to see because the front door flush came in. He checks again and I snap check it back. And just like throughout my entire high school career, we once again get rejected by the ladies and lose this hefty pot. I felt like my logic was sound in this hand, and that's really all you could focus on in this wild game of poker. 2 o'clock is quickly approaching, which is when we always leave, and we're down over $870 in a 1-3 game. We're gonna need a miracle to avoid a disastrous session. In this hand, Doug opens to $15 under the gun, and I'm in the low jack and look down at ace deuce of spades and put in the call. Hijack calls as well, but now the cutoff raises to $45. Folds back to Doug, who calls the $45, and we're stuck piles, so what's another 30? I call as well, and the hijack gets out of the way. We're going 3 ways to a flop with 150 in the middle, and the board comes out ace-4 deuce with 2 clubs, giving us top and bottom pair. Doug checks in flow, and I debate leading out in this spot, but the 3-better could have a big ace that he might bet, so I check in flow as well, and the cutoff throws out a c-bet of $60. I'm thinking about what size I want to raise to, but out of nowhere, Doug puts in a 3-bet to 120. Don't really know what to make of this bet, and now it's decision time. At this point, folding is out of the question. If one of them has ace-4 or pocket 4s, then so be it. I have a very vulnerable 2-pair with a ton of draws available, so I say screw it and jam all in. Cutoff goes in the tank and is really trying to figure out this spot. I think he'd snap fold all his lower pairs than an ace, so I'm pretty sure he has a flush draw or a big ace. I'm hoping for a call at this point, but he eventually decides to fold, and when it gets back over to Doug, he folds as well. Cutoff says he folded ace-queen, and I later showed him what I had and said good fold. No point in slow playing that hand because a club could kill our action, a 4 would counterfeit us, and a big ace can make a better 2-pair, so we need to charge all those holdings. Unfortunately, that was the last significant hand of the day, so let's get to the outro.
Good thing we got a little back with that ace deuce hand, because that was about to be a session from hell. In for $1,500 and out for $892 for a $608 loss.
We did come back the next day and play another session, but it was probably the most disappointing day of poker I've played in a very long time. We were pretty much card dead the whole day, but when we did pick up a hand, it was either ace king or middling pairs. We'd 3-bet with ace king and miss completely or get a terrible run out with our middle pairs. So as for the result, we were into the game for $1,500 and out for $1,053 for a $447 loss. So as for this week, we played exactly 9 hours of live poker and lost a massive amount of $1,055. Made some silly mistakes and didn't run the best, but what else can you do than just keep grinding it out? But as always, I hope you guys run good at the tables, and I'd appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button to help me reach my new year-end goal of 10,000 subscribers.